Hey guys, so there are some hits and some misses with the classes of Diablo 4. Diablo 4 beta has sadly come to an end, and I played 2 jobs to the max level cap of 25, and Rogue was almost 22, but sadly work called, and while I didn't get to the cap, I sure played it a heck of a lot. If only the servers were up tonight, And as a Final Fantasy XIV vet, a bunch of people were asking me my thoughts on the classes, what I enjoyed the most, the build variety, and what I'm really thinking, and so I'm spilling my honest thoughts, and I apologize if they offend you. I'm not trying to be offensive, and I'm going to tell you my favorite, and it might actually surprise some longtime viewers actually. I know that it kind of even surprised me. So first up is that both the Druid and the Necromancer were disabled this beta, and for me, that's great because it forced me to play classes that I might not otherwise play, because Necromancer and Druid is right up my alley, and it would take quite a lot to make me deviate. So first up is the Barbie, and this was shockingly a fun class to play. I heard up and down, left and right online, and I even had friends clamoring about how bad it is. I have to completely disagree, and not because I'm big brain or anything. In fact, in this genre, I'm dog, I'm not good. But I found the Barbarian super strong, especially taking the other jobs with it too through the same content. I was outright face tanking bosses, a mechanic that I frankly had no right to on World Difficulty Level 2, to the point where I really wish that I could see World Tier 3 on Barbarian. I was clearing rooms at a decent pace, and honestly, it was of all 3 of the jobs the most relaxing and most calming and the least on the edge of my seat gameplay of them, honestly. The other 2 felt flimsy and frail in comparison, where on Barbarian I just laugh as I went to the face of my enemy and smashed bleeds into them repetitively over and over again and let thorns proc like crazy. And I love the thorns mechanic. I really think that it's a fun mechanic. I really enjoyed that. I don't know if I should say that, but I think that it's such a cool passive to build into. I wish that I saw more of it in games. I know that Blue Mage has a spell like it. I think it's Ice Spikes from like an imp, but I really wish that we could see even more of it. Now let's talk about build variety very briefly, because this could be like a bazillion minute long video. I'm just gonna give you the highlights. At only level 25, 1/4 of the way to max level, we can see a ton of variety already with a Barbarian, where the Barbarian has skills that can actually heal the entire team, give them buffs, like one passive gives it an AoE heal effect, the other's an AoE damage reduction. So I'm kind of thinking, oh, you'd be like a pure healer versus like a barrier healer in 14. I mean, obviously you'd need more skills, more passives, maybe Paragon points, whatever those are at later level. The fact is you have the like foundation and at least some skills hinting towards, hey dummy, you could probably do this, and I'm like, oh yes, I like this. But like some of the shouts we have access to during the beta is buffing the damage of allies, buffing the movement speed of the team so you become Lucio, AoE taunt. So we're looking at some very real support builds that is going to get a team through content. The Barbarian build that I went with, however, is very different. There are direct damage builds for sure, but as many longtime viewers know, I love sweet damage over time effects, and I think them being stripped out of Scholar is still such a loss. So abilities like Flay or Rend or the Many Thorns passives I enjoyed fully, and it worked hilariously well. I loved it. Frankly, I love the Barbarian in beta. I want to play more of it. Barbarian is undeniably a job that I have no regrets playing. Super easy recommend. Oh yeah, and I should also say the Barbarian, yeah, okay, in the beta that's what I went with this build, but because you can see all these other skills, you can see that in the end game, this is gonna have a spot. This will have a spot in a group. Second up is the Sorcerer, and if you like casting big ass spells, this is definitely the class for you. It has a ton of variety in itself, where you can spec into becoming like Emperor Palpatine with a comical number of lightning bolts, a build that really revolves around chain lightning spam and basically doing DDR stepping on all of the lightning orbs that spawn on the field. I loved that build, and it's really what I was playing at the end of the beta. I enjoyed it a lot. You can go a Fireballs build with damage over time effects. You can go an Ice build where you slow enemies and apply a ton of vulnerability effects so you become an offensive support. And that's what I played initially on my Sorc, and I really think it's great, and I think it has a lot of potential for endgame. Now, in terms of the build that I went with Sorcerer, especially at the end, was the Chain Lightning build. But one thing that I liked about as I was going through this build was I could choose a bunch of nodes to make what was called crackling energy on the field. And so it's basically just like, if you play Warframe, I think about it like those blue mana orbs. because like I spec'd into the passive that gave me all of the mana, and so like sometimes you'd see me probably in the footage if I get it in here, is like me dancing for the orbs or like dashing for them and teleporting onto them, just because they're really, really great, and they restore MP, which let me chain lightning spam like an absolute moron. Sorcerer, I should say, is very squishy, very, very, very squishy, so I felt compared to the Barbarian like I was a lot more on my toes, and that if I made a mistake, I was gonna pay for that. So like, I don't want to say it, but whatever, I'm bad at this game, sure, but I'll be bad. I depended a lot on that ice barrier, a lot, and sometimes I put more potions into a fight than I know I should have, and I think at later world tiers I would have been punished way harder than I was. But undeniably, Sorcerer is doing a lot of damage. It has engaging gameplay, but I think that I am much less comfortable on it. Now, aside from that, I'd say, and I presume, because I've only played this for the grand total of like, what, 16, 20 hours or something, like, I think that that will resolve over time. But the one downside of the Sorcerer is probably more to my taste. I feel like it is really essentially just an I cast big massive spells archetype. I cast big ass spells, which appeals to many. I think that it's awesome. In general, I think, though, that I played too many mages in too many games for too many years to be that blown away, but if big spells is your thing, you'll definitely enjoy this. Last, but absolutely not least, is the Rogue, and while you can go melee with many solid builds, I went for a more archery-focused build, where I'd build up a ton of resources to funnel into Penetrating Shot. Winky face. And Penetrating Shot is just a comical amount of damage if everything lines up. You have the constant vuln proc every third shot. Every 3 shots gives you maximum combo points to spend on a super powerful Penetrating Shot, and then I throwed in Imbued Poison weapon as my rogue skill of choice to absolutely chunk enemies. So it's vuln on them, it's the combo points, you have the poison and everything, and then you just unleash that Penetrating Shot. It hits really, really, really hard. There are also other builds that you could go for, like an Inner Sight specialization over combo points. I went combo points for my silly synergy that I mentioned above. I really did like that gameplay loop. Inner Sight, however, is apparently super broken for taking down single targets, which makes sense given its effect, I guess. So rogues, like 2 rogues, can be completely different, like, playstyles, like completely, totally, massively different playstyles, and that's even before talking about melee versus ranged. 2 bows with a bard, I mean, bard. 2 rogues with a bow can play very, very, very differently from one another. Oh yeah, and about like vulnerability effects, like the mage, you could spec into being a very heavy crowd control with ton of vulns, so more of that offensive support idea. I really think that's a good thing to have in this kind of game. Also, rogue stealthing in and out felt hilariously awesome to totally yeet around enemies and just completely avoid obstacles. Like if you have an objective, just go for the objective sometimes. I really enjoyed that a lot. Or traps, those are funny too. People are gonna be like, but the loot, in the beta with limited time, I kind of wanted to yeet, and stealth helps the yeet. So I think Rogue has a ton of build options and versatility, and for me, at least, that's a huge draw-in. I think that you could probably make a bunch of neat builds, even being a hybrid with melee and ranged, and that might make solo play a lot more interesting. So at the end of the beta, my favorites, because I did say that I'd pick them, sorry if I offend anyone, the Sorcerer is unfortunately my last pick, and while the Emperor Palpatine memes are hilarious, I just didn't find like it fulfilled my personal class fantasy desires, which is about as shocking as hearing about drama in the Final Fantasy XIV community these days. Oh my god, I hate checking that feed, it's so dramatic. Rogue is awesome, and the versatility and build paths are very appealing, and I see this being comically fun actually late game when made right, but for me it paled in comparison to the Barbarian. Oh, the Barbarian. Everyone will think I only picked Barbarian for one reason, and it's a good reason, but the truth is, frankly, I found it the easiest to play and to pilot. I felt the most safe on it, I felt the most relaxed, I felt like chill, and like I could really genuinely turn off my brain for most fights, which might be a bad thing when I do get more comfortable with the game in general, but face tanking and delivering a ton of AoE damage through bleeds and self-sustain galore, it felt great. And then knowing endgame, I could be a tank focused on buffing the party, keeping them alive, while obviously being a tank in general is obviously something I know will be desired late game. I enjoy that to some level for sure, but what I love the most is like the paladin-esque gameplay, and so I definitely think that's a thing. So yeah, I don't know how many that surprised, but Barbarian I think is a solid W. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Did you enjoy anything? Did you play the beta? Are you looking forward to next weekend? Because I know that the next weekend apparently is open to more people. Now I've got to get some rest because work comes fast. Later today. By the time you're watching this, I'm already at work. Peace.